30-hour video, 30 minutes. All right, here's the video. We'll watch some content today, and we'll have some fun.
Does Path of Exile 2 need right now? This is a question that Grinding Your Games has likely asked themselves ever since the release of PoE 2 into early access in December of 2024. Obviously, they love feedback, and in anticipation of what might be the largest content update to PoE 2 so far, also only the second, I reached out to a variety of my friends and fellow content creators, as well as the Talkative Tribe community on YouTube, asking them all, what does PoE 2 need right now? Who better
Minion
than
AI fixes.
Dreamcore to kick off the responses? This guy's smart. He's my first Path of Exile friend, and the dude communicates so effectively. He'll know what Jonathan Rogers needs to hear.
Path of Exile 2 needs skill balance and lots of it if necessary. I don't want to see another patch 0.2 where, 50 or 60% of players are playing the exact.
Is that Expedition 33 music I'm hearing in the background? Because I think it is. Also, I agree with Dreamcore, and I also think that is exactly what they're going to be doing. I think they're going to be doing massive skill balance rework.
Same build, the same ascendancy, the same skill.
Right on the money. I'm pretty sure that Grinding Your Games will agree 100% with all of that.
If something is overtuned, it needs to be nerfed, even if it's mid-league.
Well,
that I don't think they'll do though.
Here, it's evident that GGG does not. Will they swap their stance? Probably never. Maybe if we talk about it enough, they may consider it though.
No.
All right, who do we have? Oh my goodness.
They will never change that. And we talked about this so many times over the past decade. They will never do that. But I definitely think that they will be doing massive rebalance. I think 0.3 is going to be like a 0.2 patch, but it's going to be 0.2, but more in a positive light, if you will.
It's the filter god himself. What does this man think
Never
Path of Exile 2 needs?
More interesting choices, such as more skills you would realistically use in an endgame scenario. Less hurdles to use those choices, such as less stat requirements and less level requirements. And an endgame with a clear identity. Currently PoE 2 endgame is very much PoE 1 without the tooling of PoE 1. You're slow, and there's not enough surprises, and there's not enough interesting content. So
you crazy bastard.
Hunter Brew, thanks so much for the 49 months, man. Appreciate that, dude.
You know I've got my hands full with PoE and Diablo 4.
Needs to become more clear and more interesting.
Much like Gimli and Galadriel, I asked Neversink for one thing, he gave me three. Perfect. Agree with all three of them, especially the fact that Path of Exile 2's endgame needs more surprises, needs more variety. That concept of Path of Exile 2's endgame being an essential copy of Path of Exile 1's without any of the cool stuff, any of the tooling, as Neversink said, it makes so much sense, and that's why a lot of the magic that people love about Path of Exile 1's endgame just isn't present in PoE 2. The only gimmick of Path of Exile 2's endgame right now is the Infinite Atlas, and that does not draw anyone in. All right, who do we have next here? Maybe a tryhard, someone whose video editing skills are way superior to mine and probably provided some killer content alongside just a direct-to-camera monologue. Oh yeah. Here he is.
So what does Path of Exile 2 need the most right now? I think it's got to be build variety. They got to make sure that every single skill that is a main skill candidate is actually worth playing from like early levels all the way into the end game. Right now that is not the case. I would really love for them to go back and like rebalance all of that, which I know they say they want to do, but do it right this time. Come on. Get it right.
I'm sensing a bit of a trend here, Grinding Your Games. In a title all about creating a character build, people want you to pay attention to how these skills play, how they scale into the end game, how they feel. All right, who's up next? Oh my goodness, this man gave me a green
I like this Cola. This is a nice one try.
If you had to ask me what Path of Exile 2 needs right now, right in this moment, without a doubt, there are two things that come to mind. First and foremost, we absolutely positively need Blight. Hands down, Path of Exile 2 engine plus Blight.
We don't need Blight. No, stop. No. We don't need Blight. Please. Did Dia make a react to this video? Because I'm sure he's going to be like, oh yeah, Blight, my man. Let's go, dude. Log in. no blight. I feel like that movie, that children's movie, whatever it's called, when she says no cape. That's how I feel about blight. No blight.
Absolutely sign me up. The second thing, unfortunately, we really desperately need some sort of auction house system or a way to buy items offline. The biggest flaw in Path of Exile is sometimes I can't buy that item that was listed 32 days ago by that guy that's not logging in.
How can someone be so based but so wrong at the same time? I totally agree with Travic on his second point about an automated auction house system. It's so frustrating, especially in the latter days of the league.
Let's go,
Maybe you're one of the
Troy!
people who doesn't get a lot of time to play, and you're extending your playtime all the way into month 3 or even month 4, breaking almost into month 5 of the league, and nobody's responding to your trade. It's beyond frustrating. And honestly, it even happens during week 1. Just to a lesser extent. On the Blight front,
True.
Travic, I know you love Blight, but look at this. Look
Exactly.
at
Look,
this.
dude.
Can you imagine this in Path of Exile?
Can you imagine this in PoE 2? Fuck no. No. This is terrible. This is so bad. It is boring. It's dull.
Exile 2's engine. This wardrobe change is a nod to one of my favorite Path of Exile creators and someone I've had the joy of collaborating with multiple times. I'm going to throw it over to one of the most analytical minds in this scene right now, Sir Gog.
So I was asked what's the most important thing for GGG to get right in 030. I reckon it is getting the gearing process, start and middle, to feel noticeably different to 010, but also to feel good. Now, I don't think they've got it in a bad spot as of 020H, but that was way, way, way too late to save Dawn of the Hunt. So hopefully they get that gearing process right, and the best thing Grinding Gear Games can do to get that right is to be testing the process of leveling characters from start to finish. Not just testing individual acts, but doing the whole playthroughs.
Expert analysis, as always, from Sir Gog. And look at that. Even Sir Gog might be hinting at getting all the acts in the game because it is incredibly important that characters are getting the right loot most of the time throughout their entire playthrough. So when they enter endgame, it's a smooth experience for the player if they know what they're doing. There are plenty of people who do understand the game, who do understand how to gear and build the character, that still struggle in Path of Exile 2. And it's not always a skill issue. Sometimes it is, but not always. All right, let's manifest a Diablo 2 veteran into this video for some Path of Exile 2 truth.
Hey everybody, Blaze here. I think that PoE 2 needs more items, specifically more build-enabling uniques and socketables. If Diablo 2 has taught me anything, it's that the loot aspect of an ARPG is so crucial, and that's one of the reasons why I've been going back to Diablo 2 for 20 years now. Can't wait to see what I'm picking up in 0.3. Peace.
I agree with him on the build enabling uniques, but the socketables, I don't know. You said the magic no word for me. I know that they're really trying to make socketables work. They're not working for me. I hope that they are.
I kind of agree with trying this. I'm not a big fan of the socketables. So they have these, the latest introduction of socketable content was to have more powerful choices that now fixes it, makes you get stronger movement speed. And what else was it? There was some really cool ones, spirit gaining stuff, or reservation cost, whichever it was, presence AoE, and all of those things. And they sound like, oh great, they're chase things, but at the same time it contradicts the entire purpose that they introduced the socketable system to begin with, which was, this is how you fix your attributes and or resistances. So by now making us chase these powerful things, which you're going to want to use for the end game, then you're replacing the solution to rest and attributes. And then they've basically said that, well, if you're going to do that, you're kind of expected. This is what GG told me when I talked to them about this. They said, well, at that point of the gearing, you're expected to have your gear cover your res and your attributes. But here's the thing with how endgame gearing works, at least in PoE 1. The higher budget or the higher endgame content your character is going for, the tighter resistances and attributes become in favor of power. And we solve these things, these puzzle pieces, to bench crafts and whatnot, and other crafting materials and mechanics that we have access to make sure that we hit those spots whilst maintaining the full force of the power that we want to the character. And by replacing the solution we have to fix those puzzle pieces, to fine tune and polish the corners on the table before it's presented, by giving his power to it, means that we don't have that solution at all. And that means there's a big gap between, here's your medium stage character, I want to go to the high end character stage. But the only way I can do that is if I buy a specific item with specific type of resistance, because I cannot control that whatsoever. And that is a huge problem, in my opinion, because it ends up with, hey, I have these expensive items. I want to go for super expensive items now, as an example. And what then happens is I buy one really big piece, but because that one has a fire rest instead of a lightning rest, I now have to replace 2, 3, 4, 5 other pieces to be able to equip that in the first place. And these, I think, this is a situation we normally don't see in PoE 1 because we have access to bench crafts and whatnot and harvest rest rerolls and stuff like that to allow us to fit the puzzle pieces together so that that one upgrade you just spent a lot of money on or dropped if you got lucky is now able to fit your plate. But in PoE 2, you can't. You can get that big upgrade, but if the rests or the attributes are the incorrect ones, you're kind of screwed over. Now, for you to be able to equip it, you have to replace so many other pieces. And I don't like that. And Socketables were supposed to fix that, but now they're removing that. And I don't know. I don't like the system at all.
Are phased out eventually, and they try something new entirely during the course of early access, even though this is incredibly unlikely since they've sold this as a stash tab, which is a whole other rabbit hole. I'm thinking that Socketables are always going to be here to stay. But Blaze is right on the money with build-enabling uniques. How many of those currently exist in Path of Exile 2? Try right now in the comments below. Name some build-enabling uniques. Can you get more than 10 off with ease? I struggle. Then again, I'm not a build crafter. Alright, many of these ideas have been phenomenal, but we need some serious good juice from somebody who's a super fan of not just Path of Exile 2, but other franchises to add some of his feedback.
I have about 15,000 hours in PoE 2. Love the game. Really think there's only one thing me and probably everyone else in the community really wishes they were to add, and that's a cookbook. I mean, you see what it did for Diablo 4? This could bring PoE 2 to the next level. One thing I'm sure millions of gamers would love is if this game came out for Mac. I mean, you're really missing out on a huge market share. Have you thought about adding powers?
Some absolutely cooked takes from Frosty LaRue there. Now, he did send me a few serious ones, but he did give me permission to just put in the comical ones. I think it's worthwhile. Levity is important. Anyway, let's get to the most direct dude in this list. Featured by Grinding Gear Games. Unashamed about his opinions. He is known as the Thorn God.
I imagine that you're going to get a lot of different answers to this question, and that is because PoE 2 honestly needs a lot. And that is because it is an unfinished early access product, and people tend to forget that, just because of how polished and clean it looks at times. What the game needs most, though, is to stop being treated like it's finished, and start getting updated more frequently. There are so many problems with skills and systems that could be adjusted on a more frequent basis that would keep us playing long term.
Jonathan, I tried to tell you. Lots of people just want constant changes in early access. But alas, Path of Exile 2 is being treated like a released product in terms of most of its polish and in terms of how often updates.
Okay, I will say this. I am in the boat where I think that they should make changes more consistently because it's early access. I also see the extreme value of them not doing that. And let me break it down and explain and elaborate as to why that is. PoE 2 has a stupid amount of people that has never touched PoE 1 that is enjoying PoE 2. So by them treating balance updates and changes and the flow of when people can expect changes to the game to be the same now as it is on launch means that they're basically teaching the new people that are coming in, which the game was supposed to be, new player acquisition and new player onboarding processes is very good compared to PoE 1. They're already grooming these new players into the point where they know what to expect from the company. Are you arm teaming and cheating? Well, you're gonna get banned. There's no warnings. You're going to get permaban in the story. Are we going to see changes mid-league? Only if they're breaking the game or the server. If they're not doing that, and one thing is over the top better than everything else, that will be playable for the entire season. All of these things is expectations to the player base that they're already making sure that the player base is aware of. So when the game launches, no surprises will be there. They know what to expect. And honestly, long term, I think this is the better choice. Now, I'm still in the category of saying I think that they should just consistently be making changes and testing things to create a more balanced game and create a better longevity. But when I say a better longevity, I'm talking about better longevity for the blasters, right? But PoE 2 is at a point where even us blasters can play the game for about 2 months, maybe even towards 3 months before we're bored, right? But we have to keep in mind that the majority of the player base, they're not at the end game farming pinnacle bosses and, you know, level 95 plus going ham after a week. They are going to get there in 2 to 3 months, if even, right? I think it's one of those situations where the player base and the opinions kind of differs depending on who you're asking, right? Quite drastically more so than in PoE 1.
Are being pushed out. I remember 022 was supposed to happen, maybe even 023. That didn't pan out. Perhaps that's just growing pains juggling PoE 2 and PoE 1. We'll see in good time. All right, let's see what my relatively new friend Miso Shiro has to say about what PoE 2 needs in this moment.
Hey guys, Miso here. So to answer the question of what Path of Exile 2 needs right now is definitely a difficult one. I think that there's a lot of answers for it, but definitely one of them has to be a more rewarding mapping experience. I think right now mapping is very simple. You go from tier 1 to tier 15 fairly quickly, and tier 16s aren't that much of a difference. The difficulty levels of these maps don't really scale that high, and as a result, it's never that challenging to do. And also, the challenge does not mean reward. So even if you make maps more challenging, right now, rewards aren't increased. So I'd love to see there to be a higher tier of maps that can actually be challenging, like in Path of Exile 1, and make it so that the more challenging the maps are, the more rewards that you get. That way it can actually be rewarding to run these maps as opposed to just going and putting on rarity gear and farming breaches and having high density.
Oh my goodness, Miso, preach. Reward should scale with difficulty. Totally agree with that point. However, I don't think you need to add another level of maps on top of what's currently there if you fix reward scaling with difficulty. You just need more ways to make your maps difficult. You don't need to add a whole new level of map. For some of these people, like me, it takes quite a long time to finish your atlas and clear all those high tier maps. I didn't finish my atlas in 0.1. I didn't finish it in 0.2 either. I played about 170 hours in 0.1 and about 50 or 60 hours in 0.2. If they tackle one part of what you presented, scaling rewards with difficulty, other things will be solved. That extra level of map difficulty, maybe that'll come out once Path of Exile 2 is 10 years old. All right, it's time to F with Farham. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello everybody. Hello Try, it's me, Farham, and we are here with a quick comment about what I think needs to change in Path of Exile 2. I think they need a way to dump currency. I think inflation is the biggest problem with their league mechanic right now. They're going to be adding features to the endgame, right? There's going to be more maps, there's going to be more bosses. These things are going to be coming over time in the form of league mechanics. But there's no way to dump that early currency. Exalt to divine ratios go crazy, and that is a surefire way to lose all of your casual, semi-casual audience who might have to take a weekend away, that FOMO of not being able to keep up with a rapidly inflating market. I think it drives the players away, it drives them away fast, and I think we've got two very clear indications of that happening over 0.1 and 0.2, where you see the drop-off just like a slide, just off SteamDB, just where the player's gone. So yeah, I think they need to add some way to dump that currency, probably in the form of a crafting bench, some deterministic crafting, bring crafting out for people, and actually let people customize their gear, get their characters ready for what they're trying to do, and at the same time stop inflation. I think that would be the biggest change that could come in 0.3. And that
I definitely agree with Farm on this. I think that inflation is a massive problem. Last time I looked into PoE 2 was a couple of weeks ago, and apparently mirrors are worth about 3,000 divine orbs. Like, what the fuck, man? That is so wild. But yeah, no, inflation is definitely a thing. And the player base that is hurt the most by it is the casual player base. which is absolutely insane. I'll check the clip after the video, Ghazzy.
That is it for me. Thanks, everyone.
Dude is speaking right to me. Even though I hopped into trade, I was basically priced out of any real upgrades for my characters because I wasn't playing enough and I wasn't earning enough items. I wasn't using rarity on my gear because I was trying to make my character more powerful to clear the content I wanted to clear without relying on somebody else's build, and it just felt bad. And as I just said, that's why I played way more in 0-1 compared to 0-2. The novelty wore off and I felt like I was just left behind, and alongside all my other IRL problems, when I logged in, I felt like I couldn't make any real progress. And that did.
I have to watch this clip. Everyone's spamming about it. What is this?
Oh my god, what is this? Ghazzy TV?
What?
Holy. Wait, can I give her a beard? Please let me give her a beard. Yes!
What? How is that? How
TV?
Is it just because of my tattoos? I don't even have tattoos on my neck.
Wait, can I give her a beard? Please let me give her a beard.
Good lord.
Did suck. There's a certain level of mental barrier I have between me and the rest of the player base. I think you need that if you are going to be a casual player like myself. But when exalts to divines are 2,000 to 1,
tattoos equals
something
Ghazzy
is up. You need syncs for these currencies, or the new common currency in Path of Exile 2, the trading currency, Chaos Orbs. Maybe they should be a bit more common. All right, we're moving on over to Cyclone. Let's see what he has to say about what PoE 2 needs imminently.
Path of Exile 2 needs 3 things right now. First is more content, which will bring more ways to specialize our builds in and more ways to craft gear. Second is a currency sync for Trade League, something that consumes divines and other currencies and stops divines just skyrocketing endlessly. And third, for more skills to be viable, ignoring broken skills for a moment. Too many skills are either a clunky or a combo that just doesn't feel good to do in endgame or does 0 damage at all. I love build experimentation in Path of Exile 2, but a lot of skills just feel too weak.
All right, we're getting a lot of agreement between certain people here in this video. What Cyclone just added to the conversation is that feeling of a lack of climax with many Path of Exile 2 skills. And hopefully, Grinding Gear Games is addressing that in 0-3. They all know we want to climax more often. All right, Gav, I'm sorry that you have to follow that, but here we go.
What does PoE 2 need right now? I'd have to say more dopamine in the endgame, and implementing all 6 acts because Cruel's getting pretty old. Also, I'm as stoked as the next Exile for Druid to be released, but Assassin and Traps are what I'm most looking forward to.
Alright, Gav, you're lucky I didn't cut that from the video. What is this Druid slander in favor of the Shadow and Traps? To be fair, it is a sentiment I am seeing more and more in my Discord and in comment sections. People are leaving the Druid.
GGG has officially said that the next 2 classes they want to focus on is the Huntress, which we have, and then the Druid, which we don't have yet. Also to point out, the Druid was playable at one of the Gamescom a couple years ago, and then it was taken off the shelf before the beta release. It's very likely that they're going to stay true to their words, and the next class will be Druid. That's what everyone's expecting.
Druid and the big hind legs in favor of daggers and exploding mechanical contraptions on the floor. What is wrong with the world? Okay, let's move on to this chill dude and one of the only other Path of Exile creators who isn't afraid to show some arm.
What does Path of Exile 2 need right now? Crafting. Low-end items are found on the ground. Super high-end items are crafted with materials that the average player can't afford, leaving a colossal gap in the mid-game.
Bro was the most concise person in this video, and possibly one of the most impactful. I think this is almost universally agreed on that this is something that needs to be added and changed in Path of Exile 2 right now, and Arrow just communicated it eloquently and effectively. All right, I'm sure this next dude is going to be just as concise. Right, Balor?
So, what does Path of Exile 2 need right now? There's a long list. We could talk about that for a while, but I think the most important thing right now for PoE 2 is either just raw movement speed, because we literally don't have enough. I feel like I've got concrete shoes on all the time. Or the second thing, which is that I think in the history of PoE 2 so far, I have seen 2 builds total that didn't feel like they were designed in house at GGG before we ever got access to it. There is no build creativity available. We have a very limited set of tools that only work together with the tools that were designed by GGG to work together. So whether you've come up with a build or not, you haven't come up with a build. You're just figuring out the pieces of the build that were already formed before we even got the patch. What we need the most is the ability to actually create things and be interesting, because PoE 1 is drowning in that. And it always has, and that's one of my favorite things about PoE 1, and it appears to be completely missing from PoE 2 right now.
Once more, I am getting called out in this video by Valor Mage. I stumbled into one of the predetermined builds by grinding your games in 0-2, Lightning Spear on the Amazon, and it was busted. Now, I totally understand his point here, and I do think there should be a lot more build diversity and customization options available. Maybe not as much as PoE 1 right now, given PoE 1 has been out for numerous years at this point, but greater than the current set. I also think that the dummy builds should exist for people like myself, so I can stumble into something that I am okay with scaling all the way into at least the early to mid end game, downing the Arbiter of Ash or whatever pinnacle boss is in the game at that point in time. That is one of the great things about Path of Exile 2 in my mind, the fact that I don't need to rely on any external sites as of now, and I can clear a good chunk of the game with the tool.
They've done that in PoE 1 pretty effectively, in my opinion. Like the very first time you fight the pinnacle endgame bosses to get your void stones, those fights are actually significantly easier than the baseline regular version of them. Like your quest state version of them is easier. This is to help new players not just learn the fights, but also have a chance of actually beating them, even if they're behind and they're new to the game and all those things. And I think it's a really good way to teach people like that kind of end game approach, where the very first thing, and they've done some changes in PoE 2 where that's the case as well, where the early stage of the bosses they don't drop as good things, but they're also easier to do so that they can help new players actually get to experience them, and then they can ramp things up to get the better rewards, right?
It's available in the game itself. I really hope that keeps being true all the way into the distant future for PoE 2. Everyone, rejoice. I have some wise words from the Messiah of Path of Exile for this very video.
One of the big problems here is that the development team is bogged down by worrying too much about balance changes. Really wish they'd just let the gloves off, been like, all right guys, look, it's early access. Who knows what we're gonna do? We may nerf your favorite build. We may buff your favorite build. We may all but delete the entire class, you know? That's just the way of it. It's a wild, wild west out here. But in return for doing that, you get to experiment like your wildest dreams. You can do all these crazy things. We're going to introduce all these insane setups, these synergies and techs. We don't even know what they do yet. You know, that kind of stuff. I feel like it was just a bit vanilla, okay? Especially 0.2.
I think Snube is dead right here. Dawn of the Hunt was a reactivity patch. Yes, the Huntress was added, but a lot of the content shipped in that update was in reaction, in response to everybody's concerns in 0.10. In some regards, it didn't end up going very well. And now we've heard that 0.30 will have much of the same, focusing on rebalancing and remaking existing skills, addressing the speed problem in the game, amongst other things. Hopefully it adds a good chunk of new content into the game. Because I agree with Snube, I'd rather see them just ship a bunch of content during early access, have us test all of it, and then focus on balancing once all of it is in the game, or once it's approaching its actual 1.0 release when it goes free to play and becomes an actual, constantly updated, real game, even though it is being treated like a real game right now.
I mean, we talked about we talked about this earlier. I still think that it's good that they are kind of like teaching people the flow of updates and changes that might or might not come. I think that it's good that they're doing it the way they are. I would have preferred it that they did change more actively and whatnot. But you got to keep in mind that the vast majority of people, they're in a position where they're casual players. They're not going to be in the end game. They're not going to be there after a week or two. And if GGG is like, oh, wait, that shit's OP as fuck, now they're going to nerf something. And everybody knows that nerfs are never good. even if it might have been needed, some people, especially the casual players, that might have set out to be playing that XYZ build, and then before they even get to play it, it's now nerfed. They lose interest in the game and stop playing.
How much trouble they're going through right now, adding dozens of new skills, thinking about the druid and swords and traps and the new bosses that are coming to the game and all the new league mechanics, and they have to rebalance all these things that are added every single patch. It's just a vast amount to keep in your heads, and we've also learned a lot of these decisions are made by a few top people at the company. 2 of them being Mark and Jonathan. That is a lot of weight to carry. I hope they're doing all right. Man, I am anxious to see what they've cooked for 030. This next dude was unable to submit a video, but he sent me a nice write-up, so I'm going to conjure up my best South African local impression. It's
local
crafting. We need a clearer idea of what the purpose of crafting is in Path of Exile 2. Currently, it feels like the system isn't new or innovative, but rather a partial rendition of the existing systems we had in PoE 1. Blindly stripping back doesn't always mean innovation. A car with 3 wheels is just a broken car, but a motorbike with 2 wheels serves a new purpose that can do different things. It feels like we just have a car with 3 wheels right now. If the goal is to make ground loot matter more, make ground loot matter more. Don't make crafting worse. And if there was a clear idea for a place and function for crafting in PoE 2, please let us know soon, because currently it just feels like we have a token system in the game that the devs don't want to be there, but added it just to make people happy and say that the game has a functional crafting system. We've had numerous debates on crafting and ground loot in the Pod of Exile that we do together, Localhole, Surgog, Dreamcore, and I, and it's something that we go around circles and circles about. I bet the same thing is happening in Grinding Gear Games offices, and they're trying to engineer some way to make this work without placing something in the game that is near irreversible. Something that we've talked about a few times in this video. I feel as though even though we're in early access and they said they can thrust stuff in the game a long time ago that then they can remove because it's not actually a released game, that's not the case. And they're quite timid on adding big content systems that completely change the game in
I do want to point out, like, I was around in PoE 1 from not the extreme very beginning, but very early on. And we were in a position where crafting in the early stage was like transmutes, augs, alteration, regal, X, divine, and eternal orbs. That's all we had. There were no influences, there were no other crafting material, there were no bench crafts, nothing existed. And it's like, I remember crafting a mirror amulet, and it took me 300,000 alterations just to get to one of the chances of getting a mod going. It was wild. It's fun, but the crafting in PoE 1 was like, that wasn't something people were praising, saying, oh, the crafting in PoE 1 is so good. It wasn't. It was bare bone, and it was terrible. And then every time we got a league where they introduced a new mechanic, the crafting just excelled and got new layers. The Masters patch, for example, is when they introduced what today is known for the Betrayal League. They were actually introduced as friendly masters that we could do some we could level them up, do their appropriate quests to rank them up, and as they leveled up, they opened up more crafting materials. That was the first iteration of a bench craft that we got available in PoE 1. We had dailies in there as well. People did rotation groups and whatnot. It was beautiful. It was fun, but that's how the crafting developed and evolved in PoE 1. So when people are like comparing, oh, there's no crafting in PoE 2, but it's like, we have more crafting in PoE 2 now than PoE 1 had in its same age. So when PoE 1 was about a year old, we had less crafting in PoE 1 than we did in PoE 2 right now after about a year in, right? It's almost a year in. And I think a lot of people are missing this, and they've consistently said that as they introduce more mechanics, more crafting will get there. And they have this idea that they're going to make the 2.0 versions of the current existing leagues, and then they're going to be adding new leagues moving forward with new stuff that is for PoE 2, which is great. But at the same time, they can't just give us everything, because then they would have to have the league mechanics associated with those crafting materials as well. So it kind of makes sense. So I'm not too fussed about the whole crafting. I agree with the statement that we need more crafting in PoE 2 for sure, because it kind of expected, right? But it will come with the league mechanics. I'm not too fussed about it. What I'm more fussed about is actually the inflation impact of not having access to those things at the moment. That's more the problem that I'm seeing.
Fear that they just might be removed. But I won't lie, I'm a simple man. I want some middling approach to crafting, a crafting bench, or just something that's not a runesmithing system, or at the top end using these omens that I'm never actually going to use or even find. This might shock you, but I managed to get some words from the last Epoch legend himself, master of all the ARPGs out there, Aaron from Action RPG. Let's see what he thinks.
The question was asked, what do I think PoE 2 needs right now? And my answer is, at least when I play all these other isometric action RPGs, then I play PoE 1, PoE 2, the first thing I notice is lack of quality of life. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that I wish the game had, but what I would love to see is a big overhaul on that front. You have to individually pick up each item. You don't have a sort button on your inventory. You don't have hybrid controller support with mouse and keyboard. You don't have a trade house. You need a ton of third-party tools. What I would love to see is a complete overhaul for quality of life.
You know, at this point, actually, W for Aaron. I agree with a lot of these points here. I know Last Epoch has a lot of this in the game. Other games are starting to adopt it as well.
There are so many games that have a sort button, and I don't think I've used it in many buttons at all. In many games at all. I don't know. Maybe it's because I played too much Escape from Tarkov. I just never used the sort button. Ever.
Well, I think Path of Exile 2 needs an auction house. I love that it doesn't rely on third-party tools nearly as much as its predecessor. Do we need a sort function for our inventory? I don't think so. Would it be nice to send all your currency to the stash with one click? Yeah, maybe it's the old soul in me, but I like the little game of inventory Tetris sometimes in Path of Exile 2.
Kinda do.
The auto sort for my stash, for my inventory and all that is something that I'm not a big fan of. But I do agree with the guy. More quality of life is needed, and really, grinding your game seems to be giving ground on this. Stuff like the breach splinters. Upcoming content like the auction house they've said is designed. Okay, not an auction house, but automated trading of some sort. We're making movements, and people like Aaron are why. And everybody's sounding off in the comment section below. Okay, those are the words of all of my friends. Now, let's see what everybody in the community and the Talkative Try YouTube channel has to say. Hip Chipperly says, the biggest thing that I thought was lacking in 0.2 was no additional skills for the existing weapons. Bows and maces have very limited options. Hopefully this is addressed in the new patch. Right on the money. Kip, love the profile picture by the way. I am in agreement that they need to fill out all of the coming soon options for the existing weapons. As Snoo said earlier in the video, they are being a little bit hampered by their need to balance, or their desire to balance everything, whereas a different and maybe better approach would just to be adding new content into the game and worrying about balance way down the line when the game is fully released. Egghead MU says, 1. Get X 4 through 6 done and remove Cruel. 2. Add in-game auction house. There are a bunch of other things, but those two are absolutely crucial. Egg Dude is right on the
I'm curious in chat here. Do you guys think that auction house is good or bad for the game? Just let me know. Yes or no, or good or bad. Just spam it up in the chat right now. And if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments. Do you guys think that auction house for items would be good or bad? Looks like the majority is saying good. It's gonna be curious to see how this is how this looks in a YouTube video later. My personal opinion is quite different from what I have in PoE 1. I don't think that it's too good to have in PoE 1. I think that the currency exchange is fine. Because that's how PoE 1 has been played, right? I think that an auction house in PoE 2 would help a lot. I really do. One of the main reasons I believe these things is that I dislike the fact that one of the biggest problems I have with PoE 1 is that I dislike the insane amount of third-party tools that I have to use to play the game. And PoE 2 is in the exact same boat. We have to use a third-party website. We have to use a website as a third-party tool to use trade. We have to use a third-party tool called Path of Building to design builds and play with them and all those things. We have to use third-party tools for the lab. We have to use third-party tools for the regex. We have to use third-party tools for this and for that and for this and for that and for price checking. I think that the less demand and requirement on third-party tools and having more and more of these things available in-game, the better the game becomes. That's just my take on it. And it has less to do with the ease of access of trading versus not trading. It has more to do with requiring third-party tools. Like when I play a game, I want to play the game. I don't want to have to install 700 other programs. And, when I'm playing PoE 1, I have 60 fucking tabs up. Half of them are live searches. And then I'm doing this and doing that, tabbing out, price checking with another tool, tabbing over to Path of Building. It's just too fucking much. Oh, I'm going to do an Uber lab. All right, let's check out the fastest route. Okay, I have to go to PoElab.com. Big shout out to Suit Size Smalls, who's running that every fucking day for the past decade, just to make sure that I do that. And it's like, I just want the stuff to be in game. I want to have fun and I want to play the game. I want to be forced to have these third-party tools. And that's the main reason why I think an auction house and PoE2 would do so well. Because I think that most people that are not veteran players, they might not even know these tools exist. And then it's just frustrating.
Funny, I think getting Acts 4 through 6 is probably the most important thing they need to do above adding any classes, honestly. Any balance, even the in-game auction house. Replaying Cruel is incredibly boring for many of us, and I know lots of people have grinded out Diablo 2 for decades at this point, redoing the game over and over, but it's just not what I personally want to do, and lots of people seem to share that sentiment. Additionally, when you add new acts into the game, in a game like Path of Exile 2, it all trickles throughout the rest of the game. More base items, more bosses, more area types, more monsters. It's just a tremendous effect. And I know I don't need to say more about the auction house. We are in agreement, as is Travic. Probably Jacob says, one of the issues PoE2 claimed to want to solve was leveling build diversity, which was a big problem in Path of Exile 1. Right now, one of the major reasons I haven't fired up a new run in PoE2 is that early game really feels like it's on rails in terms of which builds can get you to maps comfortably. We need some skill rebalancing so that more experimental builds can clear the campaign and get going on maps without having to do crazy respecs. Probably Jacob is echoing the sentiment we've heard many times in this video. Build diversity, either due to lack of balance or due to lack of options in the game, just really sucks right now. I suppose it's a matter of what GGG thinks they should focus on versus what the community thinks. Should they add more options or balance? What should they focus on more? Let me know in the comments below. Bird NMN says, love for SSF players. We know they say it's a self-imposed challenge, but we'd like to party up with friends or even get more loot and or currency. LE does a good job on that matter. This is a very tricky subject. I don't think grinding your games will ever bend on this. However, the addition of systems that allow you to be a little bit more autonomous and less reliant on people responding to you is an auction house. But increased drop rates, more currency in solo self-found, I don't think Path of Exile will ever be that sort of game. No. Last Epoch, though, is embracing it. And I'm saying this even as I heavily enjoy just playing in solo self-found and
Last
not
Epoch does this
worrying about the
excellently. It's a
market in the
fantastic
slightest.
system.
I just think that's an entirely different game. One that GGG is not designing. And finally, from the community, Great White Ninja 720. Gearing their game more toward the average gamer instead of the hardcore streamers who play 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking try. I'm talking the ones who don't have kids or a wide. I believe he means wife. Again, this is a tricky one that I don't think is solvable by grinding gear games.
I'm a dad gamer,
dude. They are not
dude.
designing a game that is uber duper casual friendly. This is a mentality problem, a shift you have to make, as I've made myself. I have made my bed and now I am lying in it. And I'm not saying that because I don't love my family or anything. I just understand I will never, ever be able to be on the same level in terms of playtime, skill, knowledge, as someone who plays 18 hours a day doing this as their job. There are very few professions or hobbies or games in which that's feasible. If there is a game out there that allows you to play that much, you are definitely going to have an advantage in playing that much. The solution, honestly, it's on us. The impetus is on you. You need to make that mindset shift Because again, I don't think Grinding Your Games is going to design the game to allow someone who plays for 1 hour to have the same power, the same speed, the same impact on the economy as those who play for 18 hours a day. Maybe that's a deal breaker for you, but I've come to accept it.
Like, there's always going to be a difference between someone who plays, 18 hours a day versus someone who doesn't. And I think that's quite important to point out. And those players should be able to progress faster and get better loot and get more loot and get richer and whatnot because they play so much more, right? I mean, that will always be there. That should be there. But when the gap is the gap is extended as a result of those people, that's the issue. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to inflation a lot. The problem with inflation is that it's rampantly excelled by people that are playing so many hours a day. And when they are actively creating a very, very bad phenomenon in the game for the casuals, then it's an issue. I don't think that everyone should be on the same playing field in terms of wealth and character progression and power scaling, whether you play a couple hours a day or 18 hours a day. Obviously, there should definitely be a difference. You should be rewarded for doing that, and more work you put in, the better you get. I think that's important. But again, the problem is when that other portion of the player base is creating an issue for the other player base, then it's a problem.
And I just have fun playing the game when I can play the game. For those of you who agree with Great White Ninja 720, let me know in the comments below. What solution would you impose to even go about making the game more even? I can't think of one that's realistic. And there we have it. What Path of Exile 2 needs right now as of patch 0.20 entering 0.30 in the eyes of many of my friends and content creators in the community, in your eyes, the Talkative Try community. I hope Grinding Your Games sees this. I hope they understand frustrations, desires, and just wishes that people have about this excellent early access title we have cooking right now. This was a very feedback heavy video, but in all of my discussions with my friends and with people in the comments, everybody has one goal in mind. They want Path of Exile 2 to be more fun and to be the best game out there. And many people are confident that Grinding Your Games is the company that can make this happen. I know,
that's kind of true.
I'm one of those people too. Which, by the way, I didn't say what I think Path of Exile 2 needs right now to improve the game, to make it more fun. Thought it would be fun. Maybe let me know in the comments below. What do you think and what do you think Path of Exile 2 needs right now to make it a better game? The single most important thing. Don't pull a Galadriel or a Neversink and give me 3 items, guys. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video right now if you liked it, subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile 2 content, and to watch this video on the screen right now, which is likely a podcast all about...
This was a good video. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to him. Here's the video. I'll link it in the chat. Give it a like, sub to him, all that jazz. Big shout out to Talkative Try for this, by the way. That's a good video. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of different takes. Everyone has different opinions and things, so you also have to keep that in mind. Like, everyone will have their personal take on what they want and what they think is important and all those things, right? But in the end, I think that there's common ground a lot of us can meet up on, and I think that's quite important to point out, though. There was a new video 12 minutes ago. I mean, we can just watch a bunch of videos today and just react a little bit to see what people have to say. Like, for me, it's a bit awkward because I'm in a position where we're going to have the 20th, we're going to have a reveal stream for PoE 2, which is going to include patch notes. Patch notes. You know what I do after patch notes? I am actively PoBing and going ham and prepping for the launch. Making sure my guides are covered, all those things. The day after we get patch notes, we have Last Epoch launching. And I will be playing Last Epoch heavily. And I'm very excited for that. But then at the same time, as soon as that launch time is over, then I'm kind of have to start focusing on PoE 2 again. And ultimately, my priority is PoE 2. It's going to be very awkward for me to try to balance that one way or another. Thought LE launch the same day as patch notes. 20th is for the patch notes. 21st is the PoE. Let's say Last Epoch launch on the 21st and PoE 2 patch notes on the 20th. And on Tuesday we have D4 PTR at the same time. I'm like, bro, everything. It's just wild, man. But no, like I love Last Depot. I think they've done a lot of good stuff, and they're having some minion reworks and whatnot. So that's what I'll be focusing on. But at the same time, like my priority has always been Path of Exile 2. So it's gonna be very weird for me. But my plan is to play the LE launch, and then I'll very likely have to go over and focus on PoE 2 because my plan is to go absolutely wild with the changes coming to PoE 2. They also introducing what I believe, I'm pretty confident in me saying that the league mechanic, I'm just saying the color theme, the voice line, everything is screaming Abyss League. It's a 99% certainty that this is Abyss League, which is one of my favorite leagues in the fucking game. So I'm extremely excited for that.
Dreaded move.
We'll see how that
Absolutely
goes.
Savage.